Question 1. Quality control measures reveal that the IBM Maximo Manage V8.0 implementation project is considering different strategies for migrating historical asset maintenance data. One proposed strategy involves a complete, unfiltered migration of all historical records from the legacy system. Another suggests archiving all data older than 5 years and only migrating the most recent records. A third option proposes a phased migration, prioritizing critical assets and recent history, with a plan to archive older, less critical data. A fourth option is to discard all historical data to ensure a clean start. Which of these strategies best aligns with professional best practices for data integrity, system performance, and regulatory compliance within the context of an IBM Maximo Manage V8.0 implementation? Option A. Migrating all historical maintenance data without any filtering or archiving. Option B. Migrating only the most recent maintenance records and then manually re-entering older critical data as needed. Option C. A phased migration, prioritizing critical assets and recent history, with a plan to archive older, less critical data. Option D. Discarding all historical data to ensure a clean start. The correct answer is C. A phased migration, prioritizing critical assets and recent history, with a plan to archive older, less critical data. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in ensuring data integrity and compliance with an IBM Maximo Manage V8.0 implementation, specifically concerning the management of asset maintenance history. The challenge lies in balancing the need for accurate historical data for operational insights and regulatory compliance, with the practicalities of data migration and system performance. Incorrectly handling this historical data can lead to flawed decision-making, audit failures, and potential noncompliance with industry-specific regulations that mandate the retention of maintenance records. Careful judgment is required to select a strategy that is both technically sound and legally defensible. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased migration of historical maintenance data, prioritizing critical and recent records for full migration and archiving older or less critical data. This represents best professional practice because it aligns with the principle of data governance and compliance. IBM Maximo Manage V8.0, like many enterprise systems, has performance considerations. Migrating all historical data without a strategy can degrade system performance, impacting daily operations. Furthermore, regulatory frameworks often specify retention periods for maintenance records. A phased approach allows for the selective migration of data that meets these retention requirements, ensuring compliance while managing system resources effectively. This strategy also facilitates data cleansing and validation during the migration process, improving the overall quality of the data in the new system. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves migrating all historical maintenance data without any filtering or archiving. This is professionally unacceptable because it ignores potential system performance degradation, which can hinder operational efficiency and increase the risk of system downtime. It also fails to consider the cost and complexity of migrating potentially irrelevant or redundant data, leading to inefficient resource allocation. From a regulatory perspective, while retaining data is important, retaining excessive or irrelevant data can also create compliance burdens and increase the risk of misinterpretation during audits. Another incorrect approach is to discard all historical maintenance data older than a certain arbitrary period without a clear understanding of regulatory requirements or business needs. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Many industries have specific regulations, e.g., aviation, pharmaceuticals, utilities, that mandate the retention of maintenance records for extended periods for safety, liability, and audit purposes. Discarding this data without proper justification or adherence to legal retention schedules can lead to severe penalties, legal repercussions, and an inability to defend against claims or satisfy audit requirements. It also deprives the organization of valuable historical insights that could inform future maintenance strategies and risk assessments. A third incorrect approach is to migrate only the most recent maintenance records and then manually re-enter older, critical data as needed. While seemingly addressing performance, this is inefficient and prone to human error. The manual re-entry process is time-consuming, costly, and introduces a high risk of data inaccuracies and omissions, compromising the integrity of the historical record. This approach fails to leverage the capabilities of data migration tools and can lead to an incomplete and unreliable maintenance history, which is detrimental for both operational analysis and regulatory compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of regulatory requirements specific to the industry and jurisdiction. This should be followed by an assessment of business needs and the technical capabilities and limitations of IBM Maximo Manage V8. 0. A data governance strategy should be developed that outlines data retention policies, data cleansing procedures, and migration priorities. This strategy should be validated with stakeholders, including IT, operations, and compliance departments, before execution. The chosen migration approach should be documented, including the rationale behind data selection and archiving, to ensure transparency and auditability. Question 2. Strategic planning requires a comprehensive approach to data governance when implementing IBM Maximo Manage V8. 0. To ensure compliance with regulatory frameworks. Which of the following approaches best aligns with this principle, considering the need for data integrity, security, and auditability? Option A. Rely on default security settings within IBM Maximo Manage V8. 0. And assume that standard IT security practices will adequately cover all regulatory data requirements. Option B. Focus on the technical capabilities of IBM Maximo Manage V8. 0. For asset management, deferring detailed data privacy and security policy development until a specific compliance issue arises. Option C. Develop and enforce a detailed data governance policy that defines data ownership, access controls, data lifecycle management, and audit trail requirements, ensuring these are configured within IBM Maximo Manage V8. 0. From the outset. Option D. Implement IBM Maximo Manage V8. 0. Features for operational efficiency first, and address data governance and compliance requirements as a secondary phase after the system is live. Correct answer is C. Develop and enforce a detailed data governance policy that defines data ownership, access controls, data lifecycle management, and audit trail requirements, ensuring these are configured within IBM Maximo Manage V8. 0. From the outset. Explanation. Scenario analysis. Implementing IBM Maximo Manage V8. 0. Involves significant strategic planning, particularly concerning data governance and security. Organizations must balance the need for accessible, actionable data with stringent regulatory compliance requirements. The challenge lies in designing a system that not only meets operational needs, but also adheres to the specific data privacy and integrity mandates applicable within the chosen jurisdiction. Failure to do so can result in severe penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The complexity arises from the interconnectedness of data, user access, and regulatory frameworks, demanding a nuanced approach to system design and implementation. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes establishing a robust data governance framework that aligns with relevant regulatory mandates. This involves defining clear policies for data ownership, access control, data lifecycle management, and data security. For IBM Maximo Manage V8. 0. This translates to configuring security groups, roles, and permissions meticulously to ensure that only authorized personnel can access sensitive asset and operational data. It also means implementing audit trails to track data modifications and access, which is crucial for demonstrating compliance with data integrity and accountability regulations. This proactive, compliance-driven design ensures that the system is built on a foundation of regulatory adherence, minimizing risks and fostering trust. Incorrect approaches analysis. Prioritizing immediate operational efficiency without a comprehensive data governance strategy is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach risks creating data silos, inconsistent data entry, and unauthorized access, all of which can lead to non-compliance with data privacy laws and industry-specific regulations. For instance, lax access controls could expose sensitive maintenance records or financial data, violating data protection principles. Focusing solely on technical implementation of Maximo features without considering the underlying data governance implications is another failure. This can result in a system that is technically functional but legally vulnerable. For example, implementing a new module without defining data retention policies could lead to the accumulation of data beyond legally permissible periods, or the failure to implement necessary data masking for sensitive information. Implementing a security by obscurity approach, where security measures are not clearly documented or are based on assumptions rather than defined policies, is also professionally unacceptable. This lack of transparency and clear policy makes it impossible to audit effectively and demonstrate compliance, leaving the organization exposed to regulatory scrutiny and potential penalties. It undermines the principles of accountability and due diligence required by most regulatory frameworks. Professional reasoning. Professionals must adopt a risk-based approach, integrating regulatory compliance into the earliest stages of strategic planning for IBM Maximo Manage V8.0. This involves conducting thorough impact assessments to identify potential data risks and regulatory touchpoints, establishing a cross-functional team, including IT, legal, compliance, and business stakeholders, is essential to ensure all perspectives are considered. Regular reviews and updates to the data governance framework, in line with evolving regulations and business needs, are critical for sustained compliance and effective system management. Question 3. The audit findings indicate discrepancies in work order completion dates and asset status changes that do not align with the expected audit trail within IBM Maximo Manage V8.0. These discrepancies suggest potential unauthorized modifications or a failure in the system's logging capabilities. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation in accordance with IBM Maximo V8.0 implementation best practices and regulatory compliance? Option A. Grant all users administrative privileges to bypass any potential system restrictions that may have caused the discrepancies. Option B. Ignore the audit findings, assuming the discrepancies are minor and do not pose a significant risk to operations or compliance. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of the audit logs for the affected records, correlating user actions with their assigned roles and permissions within Maximo to identify the root cause of the discrepancies. Option D. Immediately revert all affected work orders and asset records to their previous states without further investigation to ensure data consistency. The correct answer is D. Immediately revert all affected work orders and asset records to their previous states without further investigation to ensure data consistency. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between operational efficiency and regulatory compliance within the IBM Maximo Manage V8.0 environment. The audit findings highlight a potential gap in data integrity and access control, which are critical components of many regulatory frameworks governing asset management and data security. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause of the discrepancy and implementing a solution that not only rectifies the immediate issue, but also prevents recurrence, all while adhering to the specific regulatory requirements applicable to the implementation. The need for a timely and accurate resolution is paramount to avoid further audit issues or potential penalties. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation leveraging Maximo's audit logging and security features. This aligns with best professional practice by prioritizing data integrity and accountability, which are fundamental to regulatory compliance. Specifically, examining the audit logs for the affected work orders and asset records will reveal who made the changes when and what specific modifications were performed. Cross-referencing this with user roles and permissions within Maximo will determine if the changes were authorized and within the scope of the user's responsibilities. This methodical approach ensures that the solution addresses the actual cause of the discrepancy, whether it's a user error, a system configuration issue, or a security vulnerability. Adherence to the principles of least privilege and segregation of duties, often mandated by regulations, is also implicitly tested and reinforced by this investigative process. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to immediately revert the changes without understanding the context or authorization behind them. This bypasses the crucial investigative step and could inadvertently undo legitimate modifications, leading to further data inconsistencies and operational disruption. It fails to address the underlying cause and thus does not prevent future occurrences, demonstrating a lack of due diligence and a disregard for proper change management procedures, which are often subject to regulatory scrutiny. Another incorrect approach would be to simply grant all users elevated privileges to bypass any perceived restrictions. This is a severe regulatory and ethical failure. It directly violates the principle of least privilege, a cornerstone of data security and compliance frameworks. Such an action would create significant security risks, increase the likelihood of unauthorized data manipulation, and expose the organization to substantial penalties for non-compliance with data protection and access control regulations. A third incorrect approach would be to ignore the audit findings and assume the discrepancies are minor or inconsequential. This demonstrates a profound lack of professional responsibility and a disregard for regulatory obligations. Ignoring audit findings is a direct contravention of the principles of good governance and risk management. It leaves the organization vulnerable to data integrity issues, security breaches, and potential legal repercussions for failing to maintain accurate and secure records as required by applicable laws and industry standards. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a scenario should employ a structured problem-solving framework. First, thoroughly understand the audit findings and their potential implications. Second, consult the relevant IBM Maximo V8.0 documentation and any applicable regulatory guidelines to establish the expected behavior and compliance requirements. Third, initiate a detailed investigation using the system's built-in tools, such as audit logs and security configurations. Fourth, analyze the findings to identify the root cause. Fifth, develop and implement a solution that not only corrects the immediate issue but also strengthens controls to prevent recurrence. Finally, document the entire process, including the investigation, resolution, and any preventive measures taken, for future reference and audit purposes. This systematic and compliant approach ensures data integrity, operational stability, and adherence to regulatory mandates. Question 4. Process analysis reveals that a critical IBM Maximo Manage V8.0 implementation for a global logistics company is experiencing significant delays due to ongoing data cleansing and validation efforts for asset and work order data. The project sponsor is pushing for an expedited go-live, suggesting that initial data inaccuracies can be addressed through manual corrections and ongoing data stewardship post-launch to meet the aggressive deadline. What is the most professionally sound approach to manage this situation, ensuring both timely deployment and data integrity? Option A. Halt the implementation until all data cleansing and validation activities are fully completed and signed off by all stakeholders, regardless of the impact on the project timeline. Option B. Defer the implementation of advanced data validation rules within Maximo until after the initial go-live, focusing solely on essential data migration and configuration to meet the deadline, with plans to implement validation later. Option C. Implement a phased rollout strategy, prioritizing core functionalities and critical data sets for the initial go-live, followed by subsequent phases that incorporate more complex data and functionalities, with rigorous data validation and user acceptance testing at the end of each phase. Option D. Proceed with the expedited go-live as requested by the sponsor, relying on post-launch manual data correction and a dedicated data stewardship team to rectify any identified data inaccuracies and ensure compliance. The correct answer is C. Implement a phased rollout strategy, prioritizing core functionalities and critical data sets for the initial go-live, followed by subsequent phases that incorporate more complex data and functionalities, with rigorous data validation and user acceptance testing at the end of each phase. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IBM Maximo Manage implementations, balancing the need for rapid deployment with the imperative of adhering to established data governance and security protocols. The professional challenge lies in the pressure to deliver a functional system quickly, which can tempt stakeholders to bypass or shortcut critical validation steps. This can lead to significant long-term issues related to data integrity, compliance, and system usability. The correct approach, which involves a phased rollout with rigorous data validation and user acceptance testing at each stage, represents best professional practice because it directly aligns with the principles of robust system implementation and data governance. This methodology ensures that data quality is maintained from the outset, minimizing the risk of errors propagating through the system. It also allows for iterative feedback and adjustments, leading to a more user-centric and effective solution. From a regulatory perspective, this approach supports compliance by demonstrating due diligence in data handling and system validation, which is crucial for industries with strict data integrity requirements. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate go-live without comprehensive data validation poses significant regulatory and ethical failures. Specifically, it risks violating data integrity principles, which are often mandated by industry-specific regulations, e.g., financial reporting healthcare data. This can lead to inaccurate reporting, flawed decision-making, and potential legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach, which involves manual data correction post-implementation without a defined process, is also problematic. This is inefficient, prone to human error, and lacks the auditability required for compliance. It fails to address the root cause of data issues and can create a reactive, rather than proactive, data management environment. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes risk assessment and mitigation. This involves understanding the potential impact of data inaccuracies and system flaws on business operations and regulatory compliance. A structured approach, such as agile implementation with built-in quality gates, allows for continuous evaluation and adaptation. It is crucial to communicate the importance of these validation steps to all stakeholders, emphasizing that while they may extend the timeline slightly, they are essential for long-term system success and regulatory adherence. Question 5. The risk matrix shows a high likelihood of a data breach impacting sensitive customer information within the IBM Maximo managed V8.0 system due to an unpatched vulnerability. The implementation team has identified a temporary workaround that can mitigate the vulnerability without requiring an immediate system-wide patch, but it involves reconfiguring a specific module. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Inform users of the potential risk and advise them to be extra cautious when accessing sensitive data. Option B. Continue with the planned system upgrade, assuming the vulnerability will be addressed in the new version. Option C. Implement the temporary workaround for the affected module while initiating the process for applying the official patch. Option D. Immediately halt all operations within the IBM Maximo managed V8.0 system until a permanent patch can be applied. The correct answer is C. Implement the temporary workaround for the affected module while initiating the process for applying the official patch. Explanation. The risk matrix shows a high likelihood of a data breach impacting sensitive customer information within the IBM Maximo managed V8.0 system due to an unpatched vulnerability. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing operational efficiency with stringent data protection regulations. The implementation team must act decisively to mitigate the risk without causing undue disruption to critical business processes that rely on Maximo. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes immediate risk mitigation in alignment with data privacy laws. By isolating the affected module and applying a temporary workaround while awaiting the official patch, the team demonstrates a proactive and compliant stance. This adheres to the principle of data minimization and security by design, ensuring that the potential impact of the vulnerability is contained. It also reflects a commitment to due diligence in protecting customer data, a core ethical and regulatory obligation. An incorrect approach that involves ignoring the vulnerability due to the perceived complexity of patching in a live environment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This demonstrates negligence and a disregard for data protection laws, which mandate reasonable security measures. Such inaction could lead to severe penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Another incorrect approach, such as immediately disabling the entire Maximo system without exploring less disruptive mitigation strategies, is also professionally unacceptable. While it addresses the risk, it fails to consider the business continuity requirements and the principle of proportionality in risk management. This could lead to significant operational and financial losses, indicating poor judgment and a lack of understanding of the broader business impact. Finally, an approach that relies solely on user training to avoid the exploit without addressing the underlying technical vulnerability is insufficient and ethically questionable. User training is a supplementary control, not a primary defense against known technical flaws. This approach fails to meet the regulatory standard of implementing technical safeguards to protect data. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment, followed by the evaluation of multiple mitigation options. This evaluation must consider the effectiveness of the control, its impact on business operation, and its alignment with regulatory requirements. Prioritizing options that offer the best balance of risk reduction and operational continuity, while always adhering to data protection mandates, is crucial. Question 6. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a new automated workflow for managing customer service requests in IBM Maximo Manage V8 0 will significantly reduce operational costs and improve response times. However, this new workflow involves the automated capture and storage of customer interaction data, including potentially sensitive personal information, in a new data repository. The implementation team is eager to proceed based on the projected financial benefits. What is the most prudent approach to ensure regulatory compliance? Option A. Implement the new workflow with a focus on cost savings and postpone any detailed regulatory review until after the system has been live for a period, allowing for real-world usage to identify potential compliance gaps. Option B. Conduct a thorough review of the new workflow against all applicable data protection regulations and internal compliance policies, engaging legal and compliance experts to validate the design and identify any necessary adjustments before deployment. Option C. Rely on the vendor's, IBM, documentation for Maximo Manage V8 0, which states it is designed to be compliant with general industry standards, and proceed with the implementation without further specific regulatory validation for this particular workflow. Option D. Proceed with the implementation as planned, assuming existing data privacy and security controls are sufficient, and address any compliance issues that may arise post-implementation. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the implementation as planned, assuming existing data privacy and security controls are sufficient, and address any compliance issues that may arise post-implementation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the perceived efficiency gains of a new process with the imperative of regulatory compliance. The core tension lies in the potential for a seemingly beneficial change to inadvertently introduce risks that violate established data handling and privacy regulations. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any implementation, even one driven by cost-benefit considerations, adheres strictly to the governing framework. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough risk assessment and validation against regulatory requirements before proceeding with implementation. This aligns with the principle of privacy by design and security by design, which are fundamental to responsible technology deployment. By proactively identifying and mitigating potential compliance gaps, the organization demonstrates a commitment to ethical data stewardship and avoids potential legal repercussions, fines, and reputational damage. This approach ensures that the benefits identified in the cost-benefit analysis are realized without compromising the organization's legal and ethical obligations. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the cost savings without adequate regulatory review fails to acknowledge the potential for noncompliance. This could lead to violations of data protection laws, such as those governing the handling of sensitive information or the retention of records. Such a failure is not merely an oversight but a direct contravention of regulatory mandates, exposing the organization to significant penalties and legal action. Another incorrect approach, which assumes that existing controls are sufficient without explicit validation against the new process, is also professionally unacceptable. This assumption can lead to a false sense of security. If the new process introduces new data flows or modifies existing ones in ways not covered by current controls, critical compliance gaps can emerge. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adapt security and compliance measures to evolving operational realities, which is a direct regulatory and ethical failure. Finally, an approach that delays regulatory review until after implementation, hoping to address any issues retroactively, is a high-risk strategy. This reactive stance is inherently problematic as it implies a willingness to operate in a non-compliant state, even if temporarily. Regulatory frameworks typically require compliance to be in place from the outset of any process involving regulated data. This approach demonstrates a disregard for the proactive nature of compliance and can result in more severe consequences if violations are discovered. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Thoroughly understand the proposed change and its implications for data handling, storage, and access. 2. Identify all relevant regulatory frameworks and guidelines applicable to the data and processes involved. 3. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment, specifically focusing on potential compliance violations. 4. Engage with legal and compliance teams early in the process to validate the proposed solution against regulatory requirements. 5. Document all assessments, decisions, and mitigation strategies. 6. Implement the change only after obtaining explicit confirmation of compliance. 7. Establish ongoing monitoring and review mechanisms to ensure continued adherence to regulations. Question 7. Operational review demonstrates that the IBM Maximo Manage V8.0 implementation project is significantly behind schedule, and the project sponsor is pushing for the team to bypass a detailed risk assessment phase to meet the revised go-live date. The implementation team is considering several options to address this pressure. Which of the following approaches best balances project timelines with the critical need for risk mitigation in an enterprise asset management system implementation? Option A. Conduct a focused, high-level risk identification session with key stakeholders to identify the most critical potential risks, and then develop immediate mitigation plans for those identified risks, deferring detailed analysis of lower priority risks to post-implementation. Option B. Proceed with the implementation as planned, focusing solely on functional testing and user acceptance, with the understanding that any emergent risks will be addressed reactively as they arise during or after go-live. Option C. Halt the project until a comprehensive, in-depth risk assessment can be completed, even if this means missing the revised go-live date, to ensure all potential risks are thoroughly understood and mitigated before deployment. Option D. Delegate the risk assessment responsibility to a junior team member with minimal oversight, instructing them to complete a basic checklist of common risks without deep analysis, to save time. Correct answer is A. Conduct a focused, high-level risk identification session with key stakeholders to identify the most critical potential risks, and then develop immediate mitigation plans for those identified risks, deferring detailed analysis of lower priority risks to post-implementation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the implementation team is facing pressure to accelerate the deployment of IBM Maximo Manage V8.0, which directly conflicts with the need for a thorough and systematic risk assessment. The core tension lies between project timelines and the imperative to identify, analyze, and mitigate potential risks that could impact the system's effectiveness, security, and compliance. Failing to adequately assess risks can lead to significant operational disruptions, data breaches, regulatory noncompliance, and ultimately, project failure, all of which carry substantial financial and reputational consequences. The correct approach, which involves a structured and comprehensive risk assessment process integrated into the project lifecycle, represents best professional practice. This aligns with general IT project management principles, and more specifically, with the implicit requirements of implementing enterprise asset management systems like Maximo. While the C1000-132 exam syllabus does not specify a particular jurisdiction's regulatory framework for this question, best practices in IT implementation universally emphasize proactive risk management. A robust risk assessment ensures that potential threats and vulnerabilities are identified early, allowing for the development of appropriate mitigation strategies. This proactive stance is crucial for maintaining system integrity, ensuring data accuracy, and supporting operational continuity, all of which are foundational to effective asset management. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over a proper risk assessment is professionally unacceptable due to several regulatory and ethical failures. Firstly, it demonstrates a disregard for due diligence, a fundamental ethical obligation in professional practice. This failure to exercise reasonable care can lead to the deployment of a system that is not fit for purpose, potentially exposing the organization to security risks or operational inefficiencies. Secondly, depending on the industry and specific data handled by Maximo, e.g., critical infrastructure, healthcare, inadequate risk assessment could violate industry-specific regulations concerning data security, system availability, and business continuity. For instance, if Maximo is used in a regulated industry, a failure to identify and mitigate risks related to data integrity or unauthorized access could lead to significant penalties and legal repercussions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the project's objectives, the potential impact of risks, and the available resources. Professionals must advocate for a balanced approach that integrates risk management into all phases of the implementation, rather than treating it as an afterthought. This involves clearly communicating the potential consequences of neglecting risk assessment to stakeholders, including project sponsors and management. When faced with pressure to cut corners, professionals should leverage established risk management frameworks, e.g., ISO 31000 principles, even if not explicitly mandated by a specific exam jurisdiction, to guide their actions and demonstrate the value of a systematic approach. The decision should be based on a rational evaluation of trade-offs, prioritizing long-term system stability and compliance over short-term expediency. Question 8. The performance metrics show a consistent increase in unscheduled downtime for critical assets over the past quarter, impacting production schedules. Initial analysis suggests that preventive maintenance tasks are not being completed on time, leading to reactive repairs. However, the system logs indicate that the work orders are being generated and assigned as per the established PM schedules. Which of the following represents the most appropriate best practice approach to address this situation within the context of an IBM Maximo Manage V8.0 implementation? Option A. Investigate the accuracy and completeness of the data feeding into the PM generation process, review user adherence to assigned PM tasks, and analyze the resource allocation and availability for completing these tasks. Option B. Implement a new, more complex preventive maintenance strategy that involves advanced predictive analytics, bypassing the current system configuration for immediate impact. Option C. Focus on expediting the approval process for corrective maintenance work orders to minimize the time between failure detection and repair initiation. Option D. Immediately increase the frequency of preventive maintenance tasks in the system to ensure more frequent inspections and reduce the likelihood of failures. The correct answer is A. Investigate the accuracy and completeness of the data feeding into the PM generation process, review user adherence to assigned PM tasks, and analyze the resource allocation and availability for completing these tasks. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IBM Maximo Manage implementations, balancing the desire for immediate operational improvements with the need for robust, compliant, and sustainable system configurations. The professional challenge lies in interpreting performance data, identifying root causes, and proposing solutions that align with both business objectives and the regulatory framework governing the implementation. A hasty or incomplete analysis can lead to suboptimal outcomes, increased risk, and potential noncompliance. The correct approach emphasizes a systematic, data-driven investigation that considers the broader implications of any proposed changes. It involves understanding the underlying Maximo configuration, data integrity, and user processes before jumping to conclusions. This aligns with best professional practice by ensuring that solutions are well-founded, tested, and integrated into the existing system architecture. It also implicitly adheres to regulatory principles of due diligence, change management, and data accuracy, which are critical for maintaining system integrity and auditability. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on superficial fixes without understanding the root cause is professionally unacceptable. For instance, simply adjusting a threshold without investigating why it was breached could mask underlying issues like faulty sensor data, incorrect calibration, or process deviations. This bypasses proper change control procedures and can lead to inaccurate reporting or missed critical maintenance events, potentially violating regulatory requirements for asset management and operational safety. Another incorrect approach might involve implementing a workaround that circumvents standard Maximo workflows. This creates technical debt, increases the risk of data inconsistencies, and makes future audits more complex, potentially failing to meet regulatory mandates for transparent and auditable processes. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes understanding the problem before proposing a solution. This involves 1. Thorough data analysis to identify trends and anomalies. 2. Root cause analysis to understand the why behind the observed performance. 3. Evaluation of potential solutions against system design, business requirements, and regulatory compliance. 4. Rigorous testing and validation of proposed changes. And 5. Comprehensive documentation and communication of the implemented solution and its impact. This structured approach ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and contribute to the long-term success and compliance of the Maximo Manage implementation. Question 9. Assessment of the most effective strategy for migrating historical asset and work order data into a new IBM Maximo Manage V8.0 0 implementation, considering the need for data integrity and operational readiness without compromising regulatory compliance. Option A. Implement a comprehensive data cleansing and validation process, defining clear data quality rules based on business requirements and regulatory guidelines before migrating data into the new Maximo V8.0 system. Option B. Delegate the entire data cleansing and validation responsibility to the IT department without significant input from business stakeholders or subject matter experts on data context and regulatory impact. Option C. Prioritize the migration of all historical data as quickly as possible, deferring any data quality checks or cleansing activities to a later phase after the system is live. Option D. Perform a direct data migration with minimal pre-migration cleansing, relying on end users to identify and correct data discrepancies within the new Maximo V8.0 environment post-implementation. The correct answer is A. Implement a comprehensive data cleansing and validation process, defining clear data quality rules based on business requirements and regulatory guidelines before migrating data into the new Maximo V8.0 system. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IBM Maximo Manage implementations, balancing the desire for rapid deployment with the necessity of robust, compliant data governance. The professional challenge lies in identifying the appropriate level of data validation and cleansing required before migrating critical asset and maintenance data into a new Maximo V8.0 environment. Overlooking this can lead to significant downstream issues, including inaccurate reporting, inefficient maintenance operations, and potential non-compliance with industry-specific regulations if data integrity is compromised. The correct approach involves a phased data migration strategy that prioritizes data cleansing and validation against established business rules and regulatory requirements. This ensures that the data entering Maximo is accurate, complete, and fit for purpose from the outset. This aligns with best practices for data management and system implementation, emphasizing data quality as a foundational element for system success. It also implicitly supports regulatory compliance by ensuring that the data used for operational and reporting purposes is reliable and auditable. An incorrect approach would be to perform minimal or no data cleansing, assuming that issues can be addressed post-migration. This is professionally unacceptable because it introduces a high risk of data corruption and inaccuracies. From a regulatory perspective, if the implementation is for a regulated industry, e.g., utilities, pharmaceuticals, aviation, inaccurate asset data could lead to non-compliance with reporting mandates, safety regulations, or audit requirements. Another incorrect approach is to delegate data cleansing solely to end users without proper guidance or tools, which can lead to inconsistent data quality and a lack of standardized validation, again risking regulatory breaches and operational inefficiencies. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on technical migration without considering the business context and the impact of data quality on operational processes and regulatory adherence. The professional decision-making process should involve a thorough understanding of the data's purpose, the business processes it supports, and any applicable regulatory mandates. This requires collaboration between implementation consultants, business stakeholders, and data owners to define data quality standards and validation procedures prior to migration. A risk-based approach, focusing on critical data elements first, is advisable. Question 10. Comparative studies suggest that organizations often struggle with the adoption of new enterprise asset management systems due to deeply ingrained legacy processes. In the context of implementing IBM Maximo Manage V8.0, which approach best balances the need for regulatory compliance and operational efficiency with user adoption and organizational change management when faced with a client resistant to significant process reengineering? Option A. Implement a phased approach, prioritizing critical compliance requirements and operational efficiencies, demonstrating value incrementally, and incorporating client feedback throughout the process. Option B. Mandate the adoption of all Maximo V8.0 out-of-the-box best practices from the outset, overriding any existing client processes. Option C. Migrate all existing client processes into Maximo V8.0 without any re-engineering, ensuring functional parity with the legacy system. Option D. Focus solely on implementing the minimum features necessary to meet immediate regulatory compliance mandates, deferring any operational efficiency improvements. The correct answer is A. Implement a phased approach, prioritizing critical compliance requirements and operational efficiencies, demonstrating value incrementally, and incorporating client feedback throughout the process. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge where a client's existing, albeit outdated, business processes are deeply ingrained and resistant to change. The challenge lies in balancing the need to leverage Maximo's advanced capabilities for improved efficiency and compliance with the client's operational inertia and perceived risk aversion. Forcing a complete overhaul without adequate buy-in or a clear demonstration of value can lead to user dissatisfaction, adoption failure, and ultimately, a project that doesn't deliver its intended benefits. The professional challenge is to navigate this resistance by demonstrating the tangible benefits of adopting best practices within Maximo, rather than simply dictating them. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach focuses on a phased adoption strategy that prioritizes critical business functions and demonstrates immediate value. By first addressing the most pressing compliance gaps and operational inefficiencies, the implementation team can build trust and showcase the positive impact of Maximo's features. This aligns with a principle of change management that emphasizes gradual, evidence-based adoption. It also implicitly supports regulatory compliance by targeting areas with the highest risk of non-adherence. This approach respects the client's existing knowledge base while guiding them towards more robust and compliant practices, fostering a collaborative environment. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves a big bang migration of all existing processes into Maximo without re-engineering. This fails to leverage Maximo's capabilities for process improvement and compliance enhancement. It risks replicating inefficient or non-compliant practices within the new system, leading to user frustration and a missed opportunity for transformation. Ethically, it could be seen as a failure to deliver the full value proposition of the implemented solution. Another incorrect approach is to completely disregard the client's existing processes and mandate the adoption of all Maximo out-of-the-box best practices from day one. This approach is likely to encounter significant resistance, leading to poor user adoption and a perception that the system is overly complex or irrelevant to their daily tasks. It ignores the practical realities of change management and can alienate the client, potentially jeopardizing the project's success and the consultant's professional reputation. It also fails to consider that some existing processes, while not ideal, might have valid operational justifications that need to be understood and addressed through a more nuanced approach. A third incorrect approach is to implement only the bare minimum required for regulatory compliance, neglecting opportunities for operational efficiency and strategic advantage. While meeting regulatory requirements is crucial, this approach limits the return on investment and fails to position Maximo as a strategic asset for the organization. It represents a missed opportunity to drive broader business improvements and can lead to a perception that the implementation was a compliance exercise rather than a transformative initiative. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a client-centric, value-driven approach. This involves understanding the client's current state, identifying their pain points and regulatory obligations, and then strategically demonstrating how Maximo can address these issues. A phased implementation, coupled with robust training and ongoing support, is key to overcoming resistance and ensuring successful adoption. The decision-making process should involve active listening, collaborative problem-solving, and a clear communication of benefits and expected outcomes, always prioritizing the long-term success and compliance of the client's operations. Question 11. The risk matrix shows a high-priority issue related to the accuracy of asset data migrated from the legacy system into IBM Maximo Manage V8.0, impacting the critical preventive maintenance scheduling module. The implementation team is under pressure to meet the go-live deadline. Which approach best addresses this implementation challenge while adhering to professional best practices for system deployment? Option A. Initiate the go-live with the existing data, assuming that operational users can identify and correct data discrepancies as they arise during normal system use. Option B. Delay the go-live until the data migration issue is fully resolved, including data cleansing, remigration, and comprehensive validation of the affected asset data. Option C. Implement a temporary workaround that bypasses the affected asset data fields in the preventive maintenance module, allowing the go-live to proceed on time. Option D. Proceed with the go-live as scheduled and address the data migration issues in a post-go-live patch, relying on manual workarounds for maintenance scheduling in the interim. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the go-live as scheduled and address the data migration issues in a post-go-live patch, relying on manual workarounds for maintenance scheduling in the interim. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge where a critical business process, reliant on accurate asset data for maintenance scheduling, is directly impacted by a data migration issue. The challenge lies in balancing the urgency of restoring full functionality with the need to ensure data integrity and compliance with IBM Maximo's operational best practices and any relevant data governance policies. The risk matrix highlights the potential for significant operational disruption and financial impact if the issue is not resolved promptly and correctly. The pressure to deliver a working system quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise long-term stability and data accuracy. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, phased resolution that prioritizes data validation and reconciliation before full system go live. This aligns with IBM Maximo's implementation best practices, which emphasize thorough testing and data integrity checks. By performing a targeted data correction and revalidation, the implementation team ensures that the critical asset data is accurate and consistent with the business requirements. This approach minimizes the risk of cascading errors, prevents incorrect maintenance schedules, and upholds the integrity of the Maximo system. It reflects a professional commitment to delivering a robust and reliable solution, adhering to principles of good data management and system governance. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding with the go-live without addressing the data migration error is a direct violation of data integrity principles. This could lead to incorrect work order generation, misallocation of resources, and potentially unsafe maintenance practices, all of which have significant operational and financial consequences. It also undermines the trust in the Maximo system as a reliable source of truth for asset management. Attempting to fix the data issues on the fly after go-live introduces a high degree of risk. This reactive approach can lead to further data corruption, system instability, and an inability to accurately track changes. It is unprofessional to deploy a system with known critical data flaws, as it shifts the burden of correction to the operational users and can cause significant disruption. Ignoring the data migration issue and proceeding with a workaround that bypasses the affected data fields is also professionally unacceptable. While it might seem like a quick fix, it fundamentally compromises the integrity and completeness of the Maximo system. This workaround would prevent accurate reporting, analysis, and the full utilization of Maximo's capabilities for asset management, ultimately failing to deliver the intended business value. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a challenge should adopt a structured problem-solving approach. First, thoroughly assess the impact of the data issue using the risk matrix and business context. Second, identify the root cause of the data migration error. Third, develop a remediation plan that includes data correction, revalidation, and testing. Fourth, communicate the plan and its implications to stakeholders, including potential delays. Finally, execute the remediation plan meticulously before proceeding with the go-live. This systematic process ensures that critical business systems are implemented with data integrity and operational readiness as paramount concerns. Question 12. To address the challenge of automating the creation of work orders from service requests upon their closure in IBM Maximo Manage V8.0, which implementation strategy best ensures data integrity, auditability, and compliance with established business rules? Option A. Configure a workflow that triggers work order creation upon service request closure, incorporating data validation against business rules and comprehensive logging of all automated actions and data used. Option B. Establish an automated trigger for work order creation, but rely on manual review of service requests before the automation proceeds. Option C. Implement a direct automation link from service request closure to work order creation without any intermediate validation or logging steps. Option D. Develop a basic automation to create work orders upon service request closure, omitting error handling and detailed logging. Correct answer is A. Configure a workflow that triggers work order creation upon service request closure, incorporating data validation against business rules and comprehensive logging of all automated actions and data used. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in IBM Maximo Manage where a critical business process, the creation of work orders from incoming service requests, needs to be automated. The challenge lies in ensuring that the automation not only functions correctly, but also adheres to established data governance policies and audit trail requirements. Without proper validation and logging, automated processes can lead to data integrity issues, compliance breaches, and difficulties in troubleshooting or auditing past actions. The need to balance efficiency gains with robust control mechanisms is paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves configuring a workflow in Maximo that triggers the work order creation upon service request closure. Crucially, this workflow must include steps for data validation against predefined business rules and a mechanism to log all automated actions, including the data used and any errors encountered. This aligns with best practices for system implementation and data governance, ensuring that automated processes are transparent, auditable, and maintain data integrity. Regulatory frameworks often mandate auditable trails for system-generated transactions, and this approach directly addresses that requirement by providing a clear record of how and why work orders were created. It also ensures that only valid data is propagated, preventing downstream issues. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to directly link the service request closure to work order creation without any intermediate validation or logging. This bypasses essential data integrity checks, potentially creating work orders with incomplete or inaccurate information, which can lead to operational inefficiencies and compliance risks. From a regulatory perspective, the lack of an audit trail for this automated process makes it difficult to demonstrate compliance with data governance policies or to investigate discrepancies. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on manual review of service requests before initiating work order creation, even if the initial trigger is automated. This negates the efficiency benefits of automation and introduces human error and delays. It also fails to establish a clear, automated audit trail for the entire process, as the critical decision point becomes manual rather than system-driven and logged. A third incorrect approach is to implement a basic automation that creates work orders, but does not capture any error handling or logging. While it might achieve the immediate goal of automation, it leaves the system vulnerable to data corruption if the automation encounters unexpected data. The absence of error logging makes troubleshooting extremely difficult and prevents the identification of systemic issues, which is a failure in maintaining a robust and auditable system. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach this challenge by first understanding the end-to-end business process and identifying critical control points. They must consider the implications of automation on data integrity, auditability, and compliance. The decision-making process should involve 1. Defining clear business rules for work order creation from service requests. 2. Designing an automated workflow that incorporates validation steps. 3. Ensuring comprehensive logging of all automated actions and data transformations. 4. Testing the workflow thoroughly to confirm both functionality and adherence to controls. 5. Documenting the configuration and its compliance with relevant policies and regulations. Question 13. The risk matrix shows a moderate risk of inaccurate inventory reporting if the initial stock count validation process is expedited without full reconciliation. The key stakeholder, concerned about project timelines, has verbally instructed the project manager to proceed with the go-live date as planned, implying that the validation can be completed post-implementation. Which of the following actions best represents a professionally responsible approach for the project manager? Option A. Document the stakeholder's instruction and the associated risks, then proceed with the go-live as instructed, planning for post-implementation validation. Option B. Proceed with the go-live as instructed, assuming the stakeholder understands the implications and will manage any resulting inaccuracies. Option C. Inform the stakeholder that the validation must be completed before go-live, potentially delaying the project, and refuse to proceed otherwise. Option D. Escalate the issue to the project steering committee, presenting the risks of expedited validation, and proposing a revised go-live date that includes full reconciliation. The correct answer is A. Document the stakeholder's instruction and the associated risks, then proceed with the go-live as instructed, planning for post-implementation validation. Explanation. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma common in IT implementation projects, particularly with complex enterprise systems like IBM Maximo manage. The challenge lies in balancing project timelines and stakeholder expectations with the integrity of data and the adherence to established implementation best practices. The project manager is under pressure to deliver, but doing so by circumventing critical validation steps could lead to significant long-term issues, including inaccurate reporting, operational inefficiencies, and potential regulatory noncompliance if the data is used for auditable purposes. The correct approach involves prioritizing data integrity and adherence to the documented implementation plan, even if it causes a delay. This aligns with professional ethics in IT implementation, which emphasizes delivering a robust and reliable solution. Specifically, for IBM Maximo Manage V8.0, proper configuration and validation are crucial for its core functionalities, such as asset management, work order tracking, and inventory control. Bypassing these steps, even with stakeholder approval, violates the principle of due diligence and could lead to a system that does not meet its intended purpose or regulatory requirements. The project manager has a professional responsibility to ensure the system is implemented correctly, not just quickly. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the implementation without proper validation, despite the identified risks. This demonstrates a failure to uphold professional standards by prioritizing expediency over accuracy and reliability. Such an action could lead to a system that generates incorrect reports, impacting decision-making, and potentially leading to financial or operational penalties if regulatory compliance is affected. Another incorrect approach would be to unilaterally decide to skip validation without consulting relevant stakeholders or escalating the issue. This shows a lack of transparency and collaborative problem-solving, which are essential in project management. Finally, accepting the stakeholders' directive to bypass validation without understanding the full implications or proposing alternative mitigation strategies is also professionally unsound. It indicates a lack of critical thinking and a failure to advocate for best practices. Professionals should approach such situations by first thoroughly understanding the risks associated with bypassing any critical step. They should then communicate these risks clearly and objectively to all relevant stakeholders, including project sponsors and end users, explaining the potential consequences. If stakeholders still insist on proceeding, the professional should document this decision and its rationale extensively. If the risks are severe or could lead to regulatory noncompliance, the professional should escalate the issue to higher management or the appropriate governance body. The decision-making process should be guided by a commitment to delivering a high-quality, reliable, and compliant solution, even if it requires difficult conversations and potential timeline adjustments. Question 14. Operational review demonstrates that a critical data migration phase for new IBM Maximo Manage V8.0 implementation is behind schedule. The data owner, under pressure to go live, has suggested accepting a significant portion of legacy data with known quality issues, stating they will clean it up later, and that perfect is the enemy of good in this instance. The implementation team has identified that these data quality issues could lead to inaccurate asset criticality ratings and incorrect preventive maintenance schedules within Maximo. What is the most professionally responsible course of action for the IBM Maximo implementation team? Option A. Proceed with the data migration as requested by the data owner, accepting the data with known quality issues, and rely on the data owner's promise to address the discrepancies post-migration. Option B. Inform the data owner that the project cannot proceed with the current data quality and recommend halting the migration until all data issues are resolved, regardless of the impact on the go-live date. Option C. Independently attempt to fix the data issues based on the team's best interpretation of the legacy data's intent before migration, without explicit sign-off from the data owner on the specific changes. Option D. Insist on completing the full data cleansing and validation process as per IBM's recommended implementation methodology, clearly documenting the risks and potential impact of accepting the data, as is to the data owner and project stakeholders, and proposing a revised timeline or phased approach if necessary. The correct answer is D. Insist on completing the full data cleansing and validation process as per IBM's recommended implementation methodology, clearly documenting the risks and potential impact of accepting the data, as is to the data owner and project stakeholders, and proposing a revised timeline or phased approach if necessary. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between achieving project goals and adhering to ethical data handling principles within the IBM Maximo Manage V8 Zero implementation context. The pressure to deliver a functional system quickly can tempt individuals to bypass established data validation and cleansing protocols, especially when dealing with legacy data that is known to be problematic. This temptation is amplified when the data owner expresses urgency and a willingness to overlook minor discrepancies. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data integrity and compliance with IBM's recommended implementation guidelines, and by extension, general data governance principles. By insisting on proper data cleansing and validation, the implementation team upholds the accuracy and reliability of the Maximo system, which is crucial for effective asset management, maintenance scheduling, and financial reporting. This aligns with the ethical obligation to provide a system that is fit for purpose and does not perpetuate or introduce errors. It also respects the principle of professional responsibility to deliver quality work, even when faced with external pressures. An incorrect approach that involves accepting the data owner's request to bypass validation for expediency would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would violate the implicit trust placed in the implementation team to build a robust and accurate system. It would also represent a disregard for the potential downstream consequences of inaccurate data, such as incorrect work order assignments, miscalculated inventory levels, or flawed performance metrics. Ethically, this approach compromises the integrity of the data and the system, potentially leading to poor business decisions and financial losses for the client. It also undermines the credibility of the implementation team and IBM's product. Another incorrect approach, such as unilaterally deciding to fix the data without proper consultation or documentation, is also professionally unsound. While seemingly proactive, this bypasses necessary stakeholder agreement and can lead to unintended consequences if the fixes do not align with the business's actual needs or understanding of the data. This can create a false sense of security and introduce new, undocumented errors. The professional reasoning framework to navigate such situations involves a structured approach. 1. Identify the conflict. Recognize the tension between project timelines and data quality requirements. 2. Consult relevant documentation and best practices. Refer to IBM Maximo V8 Zero implementation guides and internal data governance policies. 3. Communicate clearly and professionally. Articulate the risks associated with accepting substandard data to the data owner and project stakeholders. 4. Propose solutions. Offer alternative strategies for data cleansing and validation that can be expedited without compromising integrity, such as phased validation or focusing on critical data elements first. 5. Escalate if necessary. If consensus cannot be reached and the risks are significant, escalate the issue to project management or a governance committee for a decision. 6. Document all decisions and rationale. Maintain a clear record of discussions, decisions made, and the reasoning behind them. Question 15. Stakeholder feedback indicates that the IBM Maximo Manage V8 Zero implementation project is facing a critical juncture. During the data migration phase, a significant number of data discrepancies have been identified in the historical asset data that needs to be loaded into the new system. The project sponsor is expressing strong concerns about potential project delays and budget overruns if these discrepancies are thoroughly investigated and corrected. They are pressuring the project manager to proceed with the migration as quickly as possible, suggesting that minor data inaccuracies can be addressed post-go-live. What is the most professionally responsible course of action for the project manager? Option A. Prioritize the migration of the most critical asset data, deferring the migration of less critical data until the identified discrepancies can be resolved, and inform stakeholders of the phased approach. Option B. Immediately halt the data migration process, conduct a comprehensive root cause analysis of the discrepancies, and develop a detailed plan for data cleansing and revalidation before proceeding with the migration. Option C. Escalate the issue to senior management and the project steering committee, presenting the risks associated with both proceeding with flawed data and delaying the project, and seek their guidance on the acceptable level of data quality for go-live. Option D. Proceed with the data migration as planned, documenting the identified discrepancies for post-go-live remediation, and assure stakeholders that the impact of these inaccuracies will be minimal. The correct answer is B. Immediately halt the data migration process, conduct a comprehensive root cause analysis of the discrepancies, and develop a detailed plan for data cleansing and revalidation before proceeding with the migration. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between delivering a project on time and within budget, and the ethical obligation to ensure data integrity and compliance with IBM Maximo V8.0 implementation best practices. The project manager must balance stakeholder expectations with the technical and regulatory requirements of the system. Careful judgment is required to avoid compromising the long-term stability and auditability of the Maximo system for short-term gains. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data accuracy and system integrity, which are fundamental to the reliable operation of IBM Maximo Manage. Adhering to established data migration and validation protocols, even if it causes a minor delay, ensures that the system accurately reflects operational data. This aligns with the implicit regulatory expectation of data integrity in enterprise asset management systems, which often underpins compliance with various industry standards and internal controls. By proactively communicating the need for thorough validation and its implications, the project manager demonstrates transparency and upholds professional responsibility. An incorrect approach that involves bypassing or significantly shortening data validation procedures would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would violate the ethical principle of competence and due care, as it knowingly introduces potentially inaccurate data into a critical business system. From a regulatory perspective, this could lead to non-compliance if the inaccurate data impacts reporting, audits, or operational decision-making that is subject to external oversight. It also undermines the trust stakeholders place in the project team and the delivered solution. Another incorrect approach, which is to proceed with the migration without addressing the identified data discrepancies, is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a failure to uphold the quality standards expected in an IBM Maximo V8.0 implementation. Ethically, it is a disservice to the organization that relies on accurate asset and maintenance data. Regulatory implications include the risk of flawed reporting, incorrect inventory management, and potential breaches of data governance policies. The professional reasoning framework for this situation involves a multi-step decision-making process. First, the project manager must clearly identify and quantify the data discrepancies. Second, they should assess the potential impact of these discrepancies on system functionality, reporting, and operational decision-making. Third, they must consult the project plan and relevant IBM Maximo V8.0 implementation guidelines to determine the appropriate validation and remediation steps. Fourth, they should communicate the findings, potential risks, and recommended course of action to key stakeholders, including the sponsor and business owners, explaining the rationale behind any proposed adjustments to the timeline or scope. Finally, the decision should be made collaboratively, prioritizing the long-term integrity and compliance of the Maximo system. Question 16. Consider a scenario where a manufacturing company is implementing IBM Maximo Manage V8.0 to improve its maintenance operations. The project team is under pressure to demonstrate quick results. Which approach to process optimization within Maximo would best balance immediate needs with long-term sustainability and compliance? Option A. Directly translate all current manual maintenance procedures into Maximo workflows without any significant changes, assuming that digitizing existing processes will inherently lead to improvements. Option B. Undertake extensive custom development within Maximo to replicate the exact functionality of legacy systems, even if those systems had known process inefficiencies. Option C. Prioritize the rapid deployment of Maximo by configuring basic functionalities and addressing process optimization only after the system is live and users are familiar with it. Option D. Analyze existing manual maintenance workflows, identify inefficiencies and regulatory compliance gaps, design optimized digital workflows, and then configure Maximo to support these new processes, followed by thorough testing and validation. The correct answer is D. Analyze existing manual maintenance workflows, identify inefficiencies and regulatory compliance gaps, design optimized digital workflows, and then configure Maximo to support these new processes, followed by thorough testing and validation. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing enterprise asset management solutions like IBM Maximo Manage V8. 0. The core difficulty lies in balancing the desire for immediate operational improvements with the need for a structured, compliant, and sustainable process optimization strategy. Organizations often face pressure to deliver quick wins, which can lead to shortcuts that compromise long-term data integrity, auditability, and adherence to industry best practices, especially within regulated environments. The correct approach emphasizes a systematic, data-driven methodology for process optimization. This involves thorough analysis of existing workflows, identification of bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and the design of optimized processes that are then configured within Maximo. Crucially, this approach prioritizes validation and testing to ensure that the implemented changes meet business objectives and comply with any relevant regulatory frameworks. This aligns with professional best practices by ensuring that system changes are well documented, auditable, and contribute to overall organizational efficiency and compliance. In the context of IBM Maximo, this translates to leveraging its capabilities for workflow automation, data capture, and reporting to support optimized processes, rather than simply adapting existing, potentially flawed manual procedures. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on replicating existing manual processes within Maximo fails to leverage the system's true potential for optimization. This can lead to inefficient workflows being digitized, perpetuating problems and hindering true process improvement. From a regulatory perspective, this approach might also lead to a lack of clear audit trails if the Maximo configuration does not accurately reflect the optimized process, making it difficult to demonstrate compliance. Another incorrect approach, which prioritizes rapid deployment without adequate analysis or validation, risks introducing errors and unintended consequences. This can result in a system that does not meet user needs, compromises data quality, and potentially violates compliance requirements due to untested or unvalidated configurations. The lack of a structured validation process makes it difficult to prove that the system operates as intended and in accordance with any applicable regulations. A third incorrect approach, which involves extensive customization without a clear understanding of the underlying business processes or regulatory implications, is also professionally unsound. While customization can be necessary, it should be a last resort after exploring standard Maximo functionalities and optimized processes. Uncontrolled customization can lead to a complex, difficult-to-maintain system, increase the risk of errors, and create significant challenges for future upgrades and audits, potentially leading to non-compliance. Professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a phased approach. First, understand and document current processes. Second, identify areas for optimization based on business needs and regulatory requirements. Third, design optimized processes. Fourth, configure Maximo to support these optimized processes, leveraging standard functionalities where possible. Fifth, rigorously test and validate the configured solution. And finally, deploy and monitor the changes. This structured methodology ensures that process optimization efforts are effective, efficient, and compliant. Question 17. The investigation demonstrates that a critical maintenance department is experiencing delays in work order closure due to manual data entry and a lack of real-time visibility into asset status. The implementation team is considering several strategies to optimize this process within IBM Maximo Manage V8.0, which approach best balances efficiency gains with data integrity and operational stability. Option A. Focus on extensive user training for the existing work order module, assuming that improved user proficiency will inherently resolve the delays without any system configuration changes. Option B. Immediately deploy a custom-developed mobile application that allows technicians to update work orders in real time, overriding existing Maximo data entry protocols without prior testing or validation. Option C. Implement automated data capture for asset status updates using EOT sensors and configure Maximo workflows to automatically trigger work order status changes based on predefined asset conditions, followed by a pilot program in a controlled environment. Option D. Modify the core Maximo database schema to include new fields for asset status, bypassing standard Maximo configuration tools, and relying on direct database manipulation for all updates. The correct answer is C. Implement automated data capture for asset status updates using EOT sensors and configure Maximo workflows to automatically trigger work order status changes based on predefined asset conditions, followed by a pilot program in a controlled environment. Explanation: the investigation demonstrates a common challenge in implementing IBM Maximo Manage V8.0, balancing the drive for immediate process optimization with the need for robust data integrity and adherence to established operational workflows. The scenario is professionally challenging because stakeholders often have competing priorities. Some push for rapid changes to demonstrate quick wins, while others emphasize caution to avoid disrupting critical operations or introducing data inconsistencies that could have long-term financial or compliance implications. Careful judgment is required to navigate these conflicting demands, ensuring that optimization efforts are both effective and sustainable. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased, data-driven methodology for process optimization. This involves thorough analysis of existing workflows, identification of specific pain points, and the development of targeted solutions within Maximo. By leveraging Maximo's built-in capabilities for workflow automation, data validation, and reporting, the implementation team can ensure that optimizations are aligned with business objectives and regulatory requirements. This approach minimizes risk by allowing for iterative testing and validation, ensuring that changes are well understood and their impact is measurable before full deployment. This aligns with general principles of good IT governance and responsible system implementation, which emphasize control, transparency, and risk mitigation. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on implementing new features without understanding their impact on existing data structures or user workflows represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This could lead to data corruption, inaccurate reporting, and non-compliance with industry-specific regulations, e.g., those related to asset maintenance in regulated industries. Another incorrect approach, which involves making broad, untested changes to core Maximo configurations, risks system instability and can violate principles of change management, which require documented approval and testing. Ethically, such actions can undermine stakeholder trust and lead to operational disruptions that negatively impact the organization and its employees. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the business problem and desired outcomes. This should be followed by a comprehensive assessment of the current Maximo configuration and associated business processes. Next, potential optimization strategies should be evaluated based on their feasibility, impact, and alignment with regulatory requirements. A pilot or phased implementation approach, coupled with rigorous testing and stakeholder feedback, is crucial. Finally, ongoing monitoring and refinement of optimized processes are essential to ensure sustained benefits and compliance. Question 18. Upon reviewing the initial performance metrics and user feedback for a recently implemented IBM Maximo Manage V8.0 solution, a key stakeholder expresses frustration with perceived inefficiencies in the work order lifecycle. They advocate for an immediate overhaul of the work order creation and assignment screens, citing anecdotal evidence from a few users. As the implementation consultant, what is the most professionally sound approach to address these concerns and optimize the process? Option A. Engage an external process improvement firm to independently assess and redesign the work order lifecycle, relying primarily on their recommendations. Option B. Conduct a detailed analysis of the current work order lifecycle data, including cycle times, user input errors, and assignment patterns, to identify specific bottlenecks and areas for improvement before proposing any changes. Option C. Immediately redesign the work order creation and assignment screens as requested by the stakeholder, assuming their feedback represents the most critical issues. Option D. Implement a series of new Maximo modules and functionalities that are known to enhance efficiency, without a thorough assessment of their direct impact on the current work order process. The correct answer is B. Conduct a detailed analysis of the current work order lifecycle data, including cycle times, user input errors, and assignment patterns, to identify specific bottlenecks and areas for improvement before proposing any changes. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in implementing IBM Maximo Manage, where the desire for immediate, visible improvements can sometimes overshadow the need for a structured, data-driven approach to process optimization. The professional challenge lies in balancing stakeholder expectations for quick wins with the long-term benefits of a thorough, systematic optimization strategy. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the chosen path leads to sustainable improvements rather than superficial changes that may not address root causes. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it aligns with the principles of effective change management and system implementation. By focusing on identifying and addressing bottlenecks through data analysis and stakeholder collaboration, it ensures that optimization efforts are targeted, measurable, and sustainable. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of implementing solutions that do not yield the desired outcomes or, worse, introduce new inefficiencies. It also fosters buy-in from operational teams by involving them in the diagnostic and solutioning phases, which is crucial for successful adoption. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate, unverified changes based on anecdotal evidence is professionally unacceptable. This fails to adhere to best practices in process improvement, which mandate data-driven decision-making. Such an approach risks misdiagnosing problems, leading to wasted resources and potentially exacerbating existing issues. It also bypasses the critical step of understanding the current state thoroughly, which is a fundamental requirement for effective optimization. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on implementing new features without understanding their impact on existing workflows, is also professionally unsound. This overlooks the interconnectedness of business processes within Maximo. Implementing new functionalities without a clear understanding of how they integrate with or alter current operations can lead to confusion, errors, and decreased productivity. It fails to consider the holistic impact on the system and its users. Finally, an approach that relies on external consultants to dictate optimization strategies without deep engagement with the internal team and their specific operational context is flawed. While consultants can offer valuable expertise, a successful optimization strategy must be grounded in the organization's unique challenges and capabilities. A lack of internal buy-in and understanding can lead to solutions that are difficult to maintain or adapt to evolving business needs. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the project objectives, a commitment to data-driven analysis, active stakeholder engagement, and a phased approach to implementation. Professionals should always advocate for a methodology that prioritizes understanding the current state, identifying root causes, designing targeted solutions, and measuring the impact of changes. This ensures that optimization efforts are strategic, effective, and aligned with business goals. Question 19. The audit findings indicate that a critical production issue was resolved by a team member making an immediate system configuration change without following the documented change management process, including obtaining prior approval or conducting formal testing. The team member states they will document the change retrospectively. What is the most appropriate professional course of action for the project manager? Option A. Initiate a formal exception request for the undocumented change, ensuring all necessary approvals and retrospective testing are completed immediately, and then update the system documentation accordingly. Option B. Accept the retrospective documentation as sufficient, provided the change resolved the production issue, and focus on preventing future occurrences through team retraining. Option C. Escalate the issue to senior management, highlighting the breach of process, and await their directive on how to proceed with the undocumented change and its documentation. Option D. Instruct the team member to immediately revert the change to its original state, and then follow the standard change management process to re-implement the fix. The correct answer is A. Initiate a formal exception request for the undocumented change, ensuring all necessary approvals and retrospective testing are completed immediately, and then update the system documentation accordingly. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between immediate operational needs and the long-term strategic goals of system governance, particularly within the context of IBM Maximo Manage V8.0 implementation. The audit findings highlight a potential deviation from established change management processes, which are critical for maintaining system integrity, security, and compliance. The pressure to resolve a critical production issue quickly can lead to shortcuts that bypass necessary documentation, testing, and approval workflows. The correct approach, which involves adhering to the documented change management process even under pressure, represents best professional practice because it upholds the principles of good governance, risk management, and regulatory compliance. By following the established procedures, the implementation team ensures that all changes are properly assessed for impact, tested thoroughly, and approved by the relevant stakeholders. This minimizes the risk of introducing new issues, ensures auditability, and maintains the integrity of the Maximo system. This aligns with general IT governance best practices and the principles of controlled system evolution, which are implicitly expected in any regulated environment where IBM Maximo is deployed for critical asset management. An incorrect approach that bypasses the change management process for a critical fix, while seemingly expedient, carries significant regulatory and ethical failures. It demonstrates a disregard for established controls, which can lead to unauthorized system modifications. This increases the risk of security vulnerabilities, data corruption, and operational disruptions, potentially violating internal policies and external regulations related to data integrity and system availability. Furthermore, it undermines the audit trail, making it difficult to reconstruct the sequence of events and the rationale behind the change, which is a direct contravention of auditability requirements. Another incorrect approach, which is to document the change retrospectively without proper prior approval or testing, also fails to meet professional standards. While it attempts to create a record, it does not address the fundamental issue of executing changes without proper authorization and validation. This still leaves the system vulnerable to unintended consequences and does not satisfy the requirement for proactive risk management. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the established change management framework. When faced with a critical issue, the first step is to assess the urgency and impact. If an immediate fix is absolutely necessary and cannot wait for the standard process, a formal exception process should be initiated. This typically involves documenting the emergency, the proposed solution, the risks of not acting, and obtaining expedited approval from designated authorities. Post-implementation, a thorough review and formalization of the change should still occur, but the initial action must be governed by a defined, albeit accelerated, process. This ensures accountability and maintains a degree of control even in high-pressure situations. Question 20. Examination of the data shows that a significant group of maintenance supervisors are expressing strong reservations about the proposed work order assignment and scheduling workflows in the new IBM Maximo Manage V8.0 implementation, citing concerns about reduced flexibility and increased administrative overhead. What is the most effective approach to address these concerns and ensure successful user adoption? Option A. Proceed with the implementation as planned, assuming that supervisors will adapt to the new system over time with minimal additional support, and address any issues that arise post-go-live. Option B. Issue a formal directive to all maintenance supervisors mandating adherence to the new workflows, emphasizing the organizational benefits and the necessity of compliance for system success. Option C. Revert to the previous work order management system for maintenance supervisors to avoid further disruption and revisit the Maximo V8.0 workflow design at a later, less critical project phase. Option D. Conduct targeted workshops with maintenance supervisors to understand their specific workflow challenges and collaboratively identify configuration adjustments or training enhancements within Maximo V8.0 that can address their concerns while maintaining process integrity. Correct answer is D. Conduct targeted workshops with maintenance supervisors to understand their specific workflow challenges and collaboratively identify configuration adjustments or training enhancements within Maximo V8.0 that can address their concerns while maintaining process integrity. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IBM Maximo Manage implementations where a critical stakeholder group, the maintenance supervisors, has a vested interest in the system's usability and efficiency for their daily operations. Their resistance to adopting new workflows, particularly those impacting their direct control over work order assignments and scheduling, stems from a perceived loss of autonomy and potential increase in administrative burden. The professional challenge lies in balancing the strategic objectives of the implementation, e.g., improved data accuracy, standardized processes, enhanced reporting, with the practical realities and immediate concerns of end users who are essential for the system's success. Ignoring or dismissing their feedback can lead to low adoption rates, workarounds that undermine data integrity, and ultimately, a failure to realize the intended benefits of Maximo. The correct approach involves actively engaging the maintenance supervisors, understanding their specific pain points, and demonstrating how the new Maximo V8.0 functionalities can address their concerns while also meeting broader organizational goals. This includes providing tailored training, involving them in user acceptance testing, UAT, to gather feedback on usability, and potentially making minor configuration adjustments to accommodate their operational needs without compromising core business processes. This collaborative strategy aligns with best professional practices by fostering buy-in, ensuring user adoption, and maximizing the return on investment in the Maximo system. It also implicitly adheres to the principles of change management, which emphasize communication, training, and stakeholder involvement. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the supervisor's concerns as mere resistance to change without investigating the root cause. This could involve a top-down mandate to enforce the new workflows without addressing their practical implications. Such an approach risks alienating a key user group, leading to decreased productivity, inaccurate data entry as supervisors might revert to old methods or create unofficial systems, and a general failure to achieve the desired outcomes of the Maximo implementation. Ethically, it fails to consider the impact on the workforce and their ability to perform their jobs effectively. Another incorrect approach would be to implement the system with minimal training and support, assuming users will adapt independently. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and foresight, potentially leading to widespread errors and frustration, and ultimately undermining the credibility of the Maximo system and the implementation team. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a structured approach to stakeholder management. This begins with identifying all key stakeholder groups and understanding their roles, interests, and potential impact on the project. Next, a comprehensive communication plan should be developed, ensuring regular and transparent updates. Crucially, mechanisms for feedback collection and incorporation should be established, such as workshops, surveys, and UAT sessions. When resistance is encountered, the professional response is to investigate, empathize, and collaborate on solutions, rather than to impose them. This iterative process of engagement, feedback, and adjustment is fundamental to successful system implementations.